Hey everybody, it's Eda May Bond from lightcycleastrology.com, and today we are taking a look at the opposition that is forming in the sky right now between the Sun and Neptune. This is on September the 13th, 2022. Now, before we get into the video, I want to invite you guys, if you need any spiritual guidance in the terms of an astrology reading, any kind of divinatory guidance, I have my website, lightcycleastrology.com, where I actually host some resident astrologers that specialize in different types of astrology readings. So if that's something you're interested in, please do check that out. Okay, let's go ahead and bring up the real-time chart here, and let's take a look at this opposition that is forming in the sky right now between the Sun and Neptune. You can see the Sun here is at 21 degrees and 4 minutes of Virgo, and Neptune is at 24 degrees and 6 minutes. So we like to see the planets making an opposition within that 3-degree range. So we're talking about 3 degrees before they're on the exact same degree of aspect, the degree of aspect that perfects, and then the 3 degrees after the aspect. That 6-degree range is really sort of the ancient delineatory aspect range where you could potentially see things being reflected from the cosmos down here on the planet. I don't like to say cause because in ancient astrology, we don't look at the astrological effect as causing things to happen as like we're puppets. There's still free will, but what it is that somehow there is a connection between the lower realms and the cosmic upper realms of existence, and those two realms somehow relate and are linked together. So as the ancients would say, Hermes Trismegistus, as above, so below. So if there's something happening in the heavens, it's likely that that could be reflected and symbolized to be maybe showing up in different ways down here on the planet, the sublunar realm, if you will. So today we're taking a look at some things that are happening up there that may show up in the world. Now, I want to try something a little bit different that's kind of fun here. So I've got my flashcards. Now, I've been studying astrology for decades, but within the last couple of years, I've taken some courses that have been remarkable, and I've taken it upon myself to actually, in a way, to try to go around my faulty memory. I've actually written myself flashcards, and I've sort of perfected them over years and years, where I've changed them and meditated on the archetypal concepts of each planet or house. And that's sort of how I learned astrology, in terms of being able to kind of get a deeper sense of it. It's like a meditation for me. So I wanted to go ahead and just read some of the key words off of each of these planets that I have here that are in aspect, right? And give you a sense of maybe where I get some of my delineations from. Some people do not think that you should just memorize things in astrology. With me, I would agree with that, but I have such a bad memory, and I want to be able to recall things like as quickly as I can if I'm seeing a client, or if I'm at the farmer's market and I'm doing readings there for a discounted price that I often do with my partner. I want to be able to just delineate really quickly, and I wanted to be good at astrology. So it is a method that I actually recommend if that's something that you want to have skill in. It can maybe help you become really fast with delineation. It can also do this ancient teaching technique to your soul. It can groove in your soul a deep understanding, because you're sort of meditating as you come up with your own flashcards for these different archetypal planets or houses or signs or aspects. So that's what I want to share with you today, is some of these flashcard delineations that I have. So these are just archetypes. Now, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and put up the line here so you can see. So this opposition between these two planets. First, let's talk about what is an opposition. Well, an opposition, like the name of the aspect implies, is something that is one thing that is completely opposite from another thing. And that is being represented from them being in opposite places in the sky, right? Virgo and Pisces are opposite sign. So an opposition is referring to something that is fundamentally one thing, and then you have something that is you have another thing that is fundamentally something else, like you have light and dark, day and night. Now, the idea here with an opposition, how you delineate that is you think about you cannot fundamentally change one thing from the other. You cannot make nighttime into daytime. So let's say that you were to get out a flashcard and make your own, write down your own keywords for everything that you felt like was embodying the essence of nighttime. You might have some light shining off of the moon that is from the sun. So you could say there's a little bit of that yin and yang, and I would agree with that. But fundamentally, at the deepest level, if you're having a flashcard, say, that has darkness, stars, maybe coldness, all of these nighttime themes, it is going to be fundamentally different from daytime themes. So that's what we're doing, is we're saying that there is something that is fundamentally different. The sun is standing against an oppositional, fundamental opposite to Neptune and vice versa. Neptune is fundamentally coming into contact with something that represents an opposite, some kind of opposite theme. So let's go ahead and check out some of these flashcards. So let's do the sun flashcard first. Now, okay, I won't read all of these because there's like 40 of them on a flashcard, but a few of the main things. The sun represents spirit, soul, source, God, life, vitality. Of course, the sun is light. It's the thing that gives us light. It's very generous in that way, but without the sun, we wouldn't have warmth. We wouldn't have anything animating our mortal bodies, right? So the sun represents something that animates the physical realm that we're incarnate in. Sentience, mind, that's also something else. That there's the sun represents sort of that awareness, consciousness, self-awareness that is sort of the spirit that, again, is animating our physical bodies. Ideals of noble pursuit, that's one I've got from my teacher. The visiting daimon that stirs up and conjures desires from our soul. The changing field of gilded images that draws us along the plot. Now, I've gotten that from my teacher, Achyuta Bhavadas, but that's an ancient concept that relates to the daimon, where the daimon was seen as sort of this solar spirit that sort of lives in you, and he kind of stirs your soul. And as that happens, there are these noble ambitions that sort of come to our mind, and it's like, yes, I really want to have a house, or I really want to have a family. I really want to climb to some peak level of attainment in some realm or another during my lifetime. And there's some purpose, there's some central organizing idea of a noble pursuit that seems like it's golden and it's beautiful and we want to attain it. That's the sun in ancient astrology as well. Let's see here. We also have some topical things that the sun can relate, like authority, like authority figures, kings, rulers, judges, fathers, people of high repute or high stature, right? This idea that there could be people out there that are kind of like the sun. They kind of have this central authority. So it could be presidents, right? Could be kings, fathers, somebody that has a central ruling authority or central, gravitational force that we seem to revolve around, right? Because the planets revolve around the sun as a central force of life and purpose. Knowledge, uniqueness, expert and mastery. So there's this idea of like talent or knowledge or unique individuation. So the sun can also represent a sense of, we have this inner knowledge that is represented by where the sun is in our chart. So that is one side. So let's talk about the sun in Virgo. The sun in Virgo is going to be about solar themes that have to do with the darkness now starting to get very, very close to overcoming the light half of the year. Again, from the spring equinox to the autumnal equinox, from basically the beginning of Aries to the end of Virgo, that is the part of the year, the 6th month of time frame there, that we're going to see more minutes of daylight in a 24-hour period in one rotation of the planet. There are going to be more minutes of daylight during that time of the year for that 6 months, then there are going to be minutes of nighttime or darkness. Once we get to the autumnal equinox, the beginning of Libra, that's the balance of light and dark. But from that point forward, darkness begins to increase. So Virgo has to do with preparation, with becoming ready, prepared, and having that meticulous understanding that we need to help each other work together to bring in the harvest so that we can move into the darkness with the best possible chance for surviving that 6-month dark period of cold and winter and rain and not being able to grow food. All of this stuff is sort of lending itself to the archetypal sense of Virgo. So the sun in Virgo is going to be all about this central purpose that on the general scale or on the world scale, sun in Virgo is going to be that time of the year where our central purpose is fundamentally going to be about becoming prepared, preparedness, helpfulness, craftiness, resourcefulness, all of these things that are very grounded, very earthly in a Mercury ruled sign, which is about being very practical and rational and being able to discriminate in terms of what is desirable moving into those dark months, like separating the wheat from the chaff, like they used to do in the ancient days. They used to beat the wheat to separate it from the chaff, right? And they're discriminating against what is unneeded and waste and what is going to be needed to make it through the 6 months of darkness. So that is Virgo in a very small nutshell. Solar themes are going to be about having a central purpose that brings us forward, prepares us, discriminates against things that we need to make a decision on about what we need going forward and what we need to let go of. That prepares us to go into the metaphorical underworld that begins at Libra, which is representing the darkness for the next 6 months. So that is Virgo. Fundamentally opposed to all of that topic or theme is going to be Neptune in Pisces, which is the opposite. Pisces season is a time of year where we are emerging from the dark half of the year and we're coming into the light half of the year that begins at the spring equinox, the beginning of Aries season. So Pisces is going to be about emerging from the darkness and being restless and wanting to spring forth and create new life. And it's this lusty, vivacious, sexual sort of very passionate time of year because spring is coming, things are growing, there's green shoots, there is more light is coming, there's all this hope, right? A Jupiter ruled sign, hope and abundance, growth, prosperity, unity, cohesion, faith, all of these things Neptune is going to be in. But what does Neptune itself represent archetypally? Let's take a look at the Neptune card right now. Okay. The Neptune card, invisible, blended, requires augmentation. Let me just break that down. Invisible because Neptune is one of the planets that we cannot see with the naked eye. Neptune is a planet that we actually have to have a telescope to see. So one of my key words for Neptune is that it requires some form of augmentation. There needs to be something that helps you be able to see it. You can see Neptune, but you can't do it just without any help. You need a technological device like a pair of reading glasses or a telescope. So Neptune, in a sense, can represent something that in order for you to really understand it or see it, there has to be something helping you do that. It might be an object, a person, anything like that. Vastness, eternity, imperceptible. Again, Neptune it's way out there in the cosmos, right? It's very, very far away from the planet Earth. It's very, very tiny. So there's this sense that once you get past Saturn, the 7 ancient planets, like outer space just seems to be symbolized or represented or delineated by a planet that is really on the edge of just the furthest reaches of our solar system. So Neptune often has this very it's just vast. It expands horizons. Things are just going on forever. That's one delineation. Now, at the time that Neptune was being discovered, there was some interesting things that were going on. First of all, There was calculations. People were made aware that something else should be there. They were searching. They were predicting based on mathematics and symbols. And all of this was leading towards discovery. So the story of Neptune is that when they first what led them to discovering Neptune, the astronomers, is that they discovered Uranus. And through mathematics, they learned that something was pulling on Uranus. Alluring, a hidden influence pulling on you, something pulling on you. So there was this race to try to discover this planet. Once they realized mathematically through abstract symbolism that there should be something out there, they started to search for it. So Neptune has this longing quality to it, this searching. You're sort of somehow, there's something that happens through maybe fate or karma where you learn that something should be there. There should be something happening. And it sort of brings in a longing. And sometimes that can also bring in a sense of like, we need to go out and get it at all costs. So Neptune could have that quality to it. Another thing that was happening during the time that Neptune was discovered was that we were just starting to see the American gold rush take place. So Neptune has this sort of, you're going to go out and you're going to try to seek treasure, and it's a little bit treacherous. You could die, you could lose everything you have, you could go out and, you know, your whole life could just be kind of swept up in some unrealistic sense of desire or something like that. Another thing I have is, so I have a few words here: unitive, abstract, apophenia, which means like you see symbols everywhere, everything is a sign. Expanded horizons, transoceanic conflation, conjured with treachery, evil spirits, or consequences. So unitive, Neptune, again, it's sort of vast. There's sort of these boundary issues that people have when they're dealing with Neptune sometimes, where there's a sense of things just kind of being ambiguous and flowing together, and there's no hard boundary between where I end and where somebody else ends. Transoceanic, there was a lot of travel during the time period that Neptune was discovered. There was a lot of travel that was happening by ocean. There was also a lot of sea wreckages, ships that went down. So Neptune has this interesting conflation with the ocean, with ships, with shipwrecks, with ships sinking and water and all of those things. Obviously, it's the god of the oceans, right? This is one that's really interesting. Conjured with treachery, evil spirit, or consequences. That goes to the discovery chart of Neptune itself, where there was a aspects that were happening in the chart of the discovery of Neptune, where you had the Sun, Mars, and Mercury making an opposition to is that right, to Neptune, who was in retrograde. At the time that Neptune was discovered, Neptune was actually conjoining with Saturn. So Saturn can represent evil spirits or consequences or deception or treachery. So Neptune can be treacherous, right? So you're sort of getting the idea here. I'll finish the card up with some of these keywords. We have drowning, drunkenness, fairy tales, television, enchantment, spirit world, surrendering to death, and intuition and imagination. These are some of the Neptune themes that form the archetypes. So let's put all this together really quickly. So what you're saying is that you could have, on one side of the equation, you could have this archetype that is saying we've got to prepare. We're moving into winter. We need to be critical, discerning. We have to figure out what we need, what we don't. We might have to be helpful and work with other and just get along. And it's about being rational. It's about being finding the right argument, being critically aware, having a central purpose that is just very grounded, purposeful, and it makes sense. Like it makes sense on the mental level in terms of being able to fundamentally take something apart and see all of the pieces and understand that we are heading towards a dark time. The opposite that Neptune has when you have an opposition like this is going to be something like Neptune in Pisces. You're going to have these grand, alluring moments where you're going to want to go after gold, and it's going to be about something that you desired. There's light returning at springtime. So it's like all of a sudden you discover that there may be some dream or vision. You have some vast imagination that says, wow, there's something new on the horizon. There's something new coming. So there could be a tension between these two things right now for us. So in other words, it could be something like we need to be very practical, save money, think about the future, pack our nuts away for the winter. And then there's another thing that's saying, but well, let's put all our eggs in one basket and go after this new thing that I've just discovered that is glittery and glamorous and maybe very treacherous and may not even be real, but it's some longing desire that really is going to be grand, and it's going to unify everybody, and it's going to make everything beautiful and wonderful and all of that kind of stuff. So that is both good and bad for an aspect. Of course, you're going to be pulled in those two directions, basically. And of course, that could work out really bad where you chase a dream and you land on the side of doing that and you aren't practical. Or there is a flip side to this. You could be so practical that you miss an opportunity for something new to begin to form in your imagination. There might be something where it's like, if you can't imagine something in life, then you can't make it happen, right? If you can't imagine the dream that you want to live to make a better world for yourself or for the people that you love or for the world in general, if you can't see that, then you can't make it happen. So that's the dichotomy. Those are the two opposites, the night and day, the dark and light, the cold and hot. It's something about belief, faith, something that's very alluring and very captivating and sensual and desireful and imaginative. And on the other hand, something that's very like grounded and centered and rational. Those two things are being pulling you back and forth. There's a tension between those two things right now. So think about how you feel like you're being pulled in maybe two directions with this aspect, and it'll start to pop out in your mind. Oh, I get it. Like there's been this thing at work. Like I want to do this at home, but I'm obligated to these work things, or I'm trying to save money, but there's this new opportunity to like buy a boat or something. However it shakes out, that is going to be the fundamental tension that we see with an aspect like this, the Sun opposing Neptune. So please leave your comments in the comment section below and tell me what you think about this. I'd love to hear them. So that's all I've got for today. I'll be back real soon with another aspect as they form in the skies. And take care, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.